This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
It's thought as many as 30,000 Palestinians have made their way through the Rafah crossing into Egypt. Overnight explosions blew holes in the wall along the border between the Gaza Strip and Egypt. Most crossed in search of the much-needed supplies that have become scarce since Israel closed all the crossings into Gaza last week and halted deliveries of food and fuel. Jackie Rowland reports.
The siege is broken. If Gaza is the biggest prison on the planet, this is the biggest jailbreak. Now that people have found a way out, there's no stopping them. It happened during the night. A series of explosions along the border brought the concrete blocks crashing down. The wall has fallen. These really are quite extraordinary scenes. It feels as if the whole of Gaza is flooding across the border into Egypt. This is what happens when you put people under unbearable pressure for a long time. Sooner or later, they have to break out. A day ago, it was no man's land. Now it's become a massive bazaar. The Egyptian border police just stand by and watch as people go on their shopping spree, bringing into Gaza everything that Israel has been keeping out. Like cement, for instance. Not a sack has come in for months. Now it's entering in cartloads. I'm going to build myself a new house, this man told us. You can't find cement in Gaza. Hamas forces too are taking advantage of the opening. Who knows what they're bringing in on the back of their trucks. The money changers didn't waste any time coming over to Gaza. All this shopping requires cash, lots of it. In a matter of seconds, Israeli shekels turn into Egyptian pounds. The Egyptian border town of Rafah has never seen anything like it. Palestinians crowding the forecourts of petrol stations. If Israel won't let them have fuel, they'll just come and get it from Egypt. The lines are so long you'd almost think the shop is giving stuff away. Nothing special on sale here, just everyday goods. But for the people of Gaza, it's like a treasure trove, and they're stuffing full every bag. The wall could not have been breached without at least the tacit agreement of the Egyptians. The question now, how long will the border remain open? Jackie Rowland, Al Jazeera, Rafah.
Hamas political leader Khalid Mishal has called on fellow Arab leaders to help end the siege of Gaza.
No Palestinian, no Arab citizen believes today that you cannot do anything in order to lift the blockade on Gaza. Do not say that this is an American or Israeli blockade, or there are international agreements. Yes, it is an American and Israeli siege. However, the Arabs can break the siege. Do not betray yourself.
Let's give you an overall idea of the geography here. Israel has cut off the Gaza Strip since the Hamas takeover in June last year. All the crossings out of Gaza are tightly controlled by Israel and in the last few days have been closed completely. The best chance Gazans have of reaching the outside world is through the Rafah border crossing with Egypt. The town of Rafah is effectively divided. Most of it lies within Gaza and a small area is a part of Egypt. Our political analyst Ahmed Abul Khair says that Egypt has little choice but to let the Palestinians come through.
Egypt cannot take any action against the Palestinians because the Palestinians deserve help and assistance. And in the same time, Israel has blockaded the Gaza Strip and then prevent people from the right to live. So Egypt cannot prevent any Palestinian from crossing the border, even if it is against any accord or any border agreement with Israel because they are a human being, and Israel is conducting a crime against humanity, against the Palestinians' life.
In our top story, the blockade of Gaza was broken today as Palestinians set off a series of early morning bombs, destroying much of the Egyptian border fence. An estimated 350,000 Palestinians poured through the breaches in the walls to enter Egypt before returning to Gaza with supplies. We get more in this report from Steve Leibowitz.
The human flood into Egypt began shortly after masked Palestinians detonated 17 bombs, destroying the security fence along the border between Egypt and Gaza. Tens of thousands of Palestinians rushed through the breaches, using the opportunity to buy food, fuel, and other supplies that have run out in Gaza under closure. Egyptian border guards took virtually no action, as an estimated two-thirds of the metal border fence was destroyed within minutes. Hamas declined to take credit for the action, but its forces almost immediately took up positions along the border frontier. At a few locations, Hamas police also guided the crowds through two sections of the border. On the return, Hamas guards inspected some bags. In other areas, people simply walked back across the border into Gaza, bringing back everything from goats and chickens to crates of Coke, car tires, cigarettes, and basically anything currently scarce in Gaza. A major item brought in by the returnees was cigarettes, which are fetching as much as 5 times the normal price in Gaza. The chaotic scene came on the 6th day of a complete closure by Israel in response to heavy rocket fire. Israel last week imposed a full closure on Gaza, although Defense Minister Ehud Barak has allowed a limited transfer of fuel for the power plant and medical supplies for hospitals.
We expect the Egyptians to solve the problem. Obviously, if the exits are open, so may be the entrance, and there's a danger that Hamas terrorists or other terrorists will try to take advantage of this new situation.
Hamas apparently coordinated the action in an effort to apply pressure on Egypt, which, in the Hamas-Palestinian view, has cooperated with Israeli sanctions by keeping the Rafah border closed. Israeli officials say that the entry to Israel will remain closed on a permanent basis except for emergency humanitarian needs. Israel's policy is meant to prevent humanitarian catastrophe and minimize international criticism. At the same time, officials insist that as long as rocket attacks continue, the border crossings will not return to normal.
Returning now to the situation along the Egyptian border with Gaza, IBA's Efrat Batat spoke to Dr. Martin Sherman, strategic studies expert from the Tel Aviv University, who said today's events were predictable and are an indirect result of Israel's disengagement from Gaza.
Well, basically it generates a dual threat. On the one hand, terrorists inside Gaza will have greater access to Sinai and therefore have greater access to the poorly guarded border along the Negev, which has recently been in the news as being very easy to infiltrate. And of course, the opposite threat is it will be much easier for them now to smuggle in weapons and explosives, etc., etc. But I think perhaps the most distressing thing is that it was also predictable. Proves what an enormous fiasco the whole initiative of disengagement has been. And I think perhaps the most surprising thing is that anyone is surprised.
So you're saying that this was foreseeable, specifically this outpouring, this breakout of Gazans into the Egyptian border?
Well, I think what was foreseeable was that Israel cannot entrust vital security interests to any Arab element, whether they are purportedly moderate and pragmatic like the Fatah or the Egyptians, or extremists like the Hamas, because we conducted the disengagement under the assumption that we'd be dealing with the Fatah, and we got the Hamas, which of course wasn't an impossible scenario to envisage. I think it was also unrealistically optimistic to believe that the Egyptians would seal the border for us, although perhaps a specific incident of blowing up this large portion of the wall exceeded even the most pessimistic estimates of those who opposed the agreement. But a wise strategy is always to hope for the best but plan for the worst, and this has obviously been inverted by the Israeli government.
The Syrian-based Palestinian factions, including Hamas, held a national Palestinian conference in Damascus. Arab delegates and hundreds of Palestinians came from the Palestinian territories and elsewhere from exile to participate in the conference.
The Assistant Secretary General of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, Central Command, Talal Naji, called on Gaza residents to stay steadfast.
The head of Hamas political office, Khaled Mishal, was among the participants in the conference, which is held under the title, "Staying Committed to National Palestinian Rights and Achieving National Unity is the Path for Liberation and the Right of Return."
The way in which this conference was held and the nature of the topics discussed in it send many messages. The Syrian-based Palestinian factions held this conference with the objective of ending internal divisions. It seems that the guests and their hosts want to show the level of their influence on Palestinian affairs. The Popular Front and the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, as well as Fatah, boycotted the conference. Everyone seems to support the objectives and agendas of this conference, although Palestinian factions who are brothers in the struggle have been divided for a long time.
The conference will declare that our nation is still committed to the rights of the Palestinian refugees to return to their country. The conference will also declare that our nation is still committed to its right to resist and liberate the occupied territories. The conference also provides an opportunity to discuss ongoing Palestinian divisions which are not pleasing to anyone.
Some believe that the most powerful Palestinian card in confronting the Israeli occupation is not having one Palestinian faction dominate the process at the expense of other factions. They argue that the Palestinians must achieve national unity before anything else.
Palestinian national conferences can provide a positive push for the Palestinian negotiators, especially if the Palestinians can achieve true unity on the ground. The social and political activities among Palestinian factions can be used as winning cards by the Palestinian negotiators.
During the past decades of occupation, the Palestinians have suffered from a variety of issues, including living in oppression behind walls that isolated them from their stolen homeland and living in exile. So far, they only share their dreams. Large segments of the Palestinian refugees have different priorities. Some have been warning not to get involved in conferences that do not have the consent of the majority of Palestinians, but others believe that the objectives justify the means.
The occupation is using the ongoing Palestinian divisions. Consideration must also be given to making decisions based on mutual Palestinian understanding. National conferences can provide a positive push for the Palestinian negotiators, especially if the Palestinians can achieve true unity.
I was displaced in 1948. I do not want anyone to negotiate my land and my plight. I do not want anyone to sell my homeland for a handful of dinars.
No Palestinian disagrees that what is happening on the ground is what matters the most. Abdulhamid Tawfiq, Al Jazeera, Damascus.
During the conference, the head of Hamas political office, Khaled Mishal, called on Arab countries to reconsider their positions toward the political negotiations with Israel. Mishal said that the negotiations are nothing more than a train going around in circles.
Mishal also said that Arab leaders can break the siege that has been imposed on Gaza. He urged Arab nations to continue their political activities until the siege has ended.
I'm addressing all Arab leaders, including the presidents, kings, and princes. If you want to be sincere to the Palestinian people, assign your foreign ministers to lifting the boycott that has been imposed on Gaza. We do not want anything else. I call on all Arab and Muslim leaders, I'm referring to the heads of states, governments, and regimes, as well as the Palestinians serving in public offices, to reconsider the results that have been achieved through the political settlements. I call on them to reconsider the strategy of negotiating political settlements and the way they have managed their policies toward the Palestinian conflict. The time has come to take clear position, using the strategy of political negotiations under the current balance of power. We are not speaking from a position of power, but rather under conditions in which some Palestinians have been destroying our strong cards, as the government of Salam Fayeed has been doing today in the West Bank, as my brother Muno Shafiq has said.
بكم مجددا. قال وزير الخارجية الروسي سيرجي لافروف إن مشروع القرار.
The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that the new resolution on Iran in the UN Security Council relates to holding direct talks between it and the 6 major powers if Tehran accepts the proposals of these countries. Lavrov said that the new resolution does not include sanctions on Tehran, thus it is not strong. Lavrov confirmed that the text expresses the support of the 6 countries for the continued efforts of the International Atomic Energy Agency, aimed at easing concerns about issues in the Iranian nuclear program that have not yet been fully clarified.
The sanctions, which had appeared to be imposed on Iran for the 3rd time, have not changed Tehran's position since the beginning regarding the crisis of its nuclear file. One day after an agreement by the 6 major powers in Berlin, they announced a new resolution in the Security Council that places stricter sanctions on Iran. Iranian President Ahmadinejad said that these sanctions will not stop his country from continuing its nuclear program. In response, a top Iranian nuclear negotiator, Saeed Jalili, said that Iran has gone beyond its international obligations, reiterating that its nuclear activities are peaceful. He said that points of difference, and not points in common, will be the focus of discussions in Brussels between Jalili and Javier Solana, the European Union foreign policy chief. While Washington appeared relieved by the resolution of the major powers, Russia said that the new draft resolution includes additional measures, but that it does not call for any tough sanctions. These developments of the Iranian nuclear file come at a time when Israel and the United States are preparing to hold a meeting for their Joint Strategy Cooperation Committee to discuss the Iranian nuclear file in Jerusalem. Israel, which welcomed increased pressure on Iran, tested a ballistic missile in the middle of last month. It also launched a new spy satellite, which will specifically monitor Iran from an Israeli-Indian satellite station. Zain Al-Fayez, Al-Arabiya.
زين الفايز العربية.
Iran announced that efforts by the Group of 5 plus Germany to introduce a new UN resolution against it will not affect the Iranian people's determination to continue its peaceful nuclear program in the framework of international laws. It confirmed that involving the UN Security Council on the nuclear issue is illegal and unwarranted.
Iran held firm to its position, refusing to make any compromises on its nuclear program. This came in response to the meeting of the 5+1 group in Berlin, aimed at drafting a new resolution to impose new sanctions on Tehran.
The Iranian people will continue their mission until they achieve their goals. Any new resolution will not affect these goals.
Tehran increased its diplomatic efforts to avoid anticipated sanctions proposed by the United States and its Western allies, but are opposed by Moscow and Peking. After his visit to Peking, the Secretary of the High Council on National Iranian Security, Saeed Jalili, headed towards Brussels to explain his country's position to the European Parliament. These latest maneuvers by the 5+1 group come as Iran and the International Atomic Energy Agency are about to finalize the agreement on the program and remove all ambiguity surrounding the Iranian nuclear program. The Iranian nuclear program is merely a pretext and nothing more. This is how it is viewed by Iranians, who witnessed the long history of nuclear cooperation between the Shah of Iran and Western nations, when Western countries competed to provide the Shah with a nuclear weapons program. This reflects some of the contradictions of the West and its bias against free nations.
في تصفح هذا التاريخ الحافل الرئيس الأمريكي الأسبق أيزنهاور وخلال
At the basis of this long history was former U.S. President Eisenhower, who during his visit with the Shah confirmed the need for Iran to become a nuclear power in order to protect American interests in the face of the Soviet Union. In 1958, with the support of Washington, Iran joined the International Atomic Energy Agency. Washington provided Iran with nuclear reactors that use light water. In the 1970s, President Gerald Ford sent his Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, to Tehran to sign nuclear agreements.
We signed an agreement that allows for the construction of 8 nuclear facilities. We hope to implement this agreement after the initial phases are completed.
France is one of the most eager of the 5+1 group to impose sanctions. In 1954, the Shah visited one of France's nuclear facilities and signed an agreement with the French to construct 5 nuclear facilities in Iran. During his visit to Tehran, Jacques Chirac agreed to provide Iran with enriched uranium. Since then, Iran still holds shares in 2 French companies, Eurodif and Framatome, both of which specialize in uranium enrichment. However, Iran was not able to obtain any of these materials, even for nuclear energy. Germany is the +1 of the 5 National Security Council members. The German company Siemens laid down the cornerstone for the Bushehr nuclear facility in the 1970s. When the Shah fell, Germany reneged on its commitment to finish building this facility. For more than 30 years, this facility has faced difficulty in getting built because companies continue to breach their contracts due to American and Western pressure. Nabil Beirous, Al-Alam, Tehran.
Navid Behruz, Al-Alam, Tehran.
Iraq's parliament voted today to change the country's flag by removing the 3 stars and rewriting the phrase, God Almighty, in green Kufi inscription. In addition, the parliament held another session to discuss all outstanding issues at the government agenda in order to vote and make a decision on them.
The Council of Ministers also held a special meeting to consider the draft law recognizing the new salaries for all state employees and civil servants.
After weeks of intensive debates and discussions between the various parliamentary blocs and members of the Presidential Assembly, the Council of Ministers approved a resolution to change the Iraqi flag. The new flag retains the 3 colors of the old one, red, white, and black. However, the 3 stars on the flag will be removed and the Arabic inscription, Allahu Akbar, God is great, will be written in a Kufi script.
Today, the Iraqi Parliament approved the new flag. Effective today, the flag will be raised throughout Iraq, including in the Kurdistan region in Iraq's 15 provinces. The flag is to be raised over Iraqi embassies and government buildings, as well as on private institutions. We wish you prosperity under the new flag.
In a speech before the Iraqi Council of Ministers, Parliament member Muhammad Hamdawi said that while Iraq is an important and effective member of the Arab League and its institutions, many of its representatives are unfortunately not Iraqis.
We do have representatives in these organizations. However, who is representing Iraq in these institutions? Please listen carefully as I read the following names. Luma Farouk Saeed, an Egyptian citizen, works as the head of Iraq's division in the Arab League, and her husband, a Palestinian national, works as the head of Iraq's Workers' Committee in the Arab Labor Organization based in Cairo. Abdulrahman Jiddo, a Mauritanian citizen, works as Iraq's representative in the Arab Organization for Industrial Development based in Morocco. Intisar Burhan Muhammad Rees, a Syrian citizen and the wife of Abdelmajid Rafi, a member of the National Leadership Council who also works at Iraq's division in the Arab Organization for Industrial Development. Muhammad Rifat Abdel Malik, a Palestinian national who also works at Iraq's division in the Arab Organization for Industrial Development. Abdel Dajani, a Sudanese national who works as a representative of Iraq in the Arab Police Union.
As soon as it is feasible, Hoshyar Zubari will present a new draft to this honorable council. Once the draft is read, you can discuss with him all the issues from A to Z.
The Council of Ministers also held a special meeting to consider the draft law recognizing the new salaries for all state employees and civil servants. Moreover, the Council discussed the Memorandum of Understanding, which was signed by the U.S. government and the Republic of Iraq to boost the latter's agricultural sector. Ala Khafaji, Iraqiya, Baghdad.
The invasion of Iraq, a series of wars, and terrorist attacks in the country has caused damage to many historical antiquities and murals, including the Freedom Mural in Baghdad, which is close to collapse as a result of damage. Jawad Khattab sheds light on this topic.
The Baghdad Council has sounded the warning bell to the government and cultural administrations. One of the most important contemporary artistic features in Iraq is being threatened by collapse. The Freedom Mural was created by longtime artist Jawad Salim and represents one of the most symbolic features of Baghdad. Its walls are full of cracks and have been damaged as a result of nearby explosions and armed attacks.
هذه الأضرار التي تعرض لها نصب الحرية اللي يعتبر هو
There has been much damage to the Freedom Mural, which is considered the largest mural in Baghdad and makes a huge impression on all Iraqis. This is the symbol of the city of Baghdad. We call on our Iraqi brothers to cooperate with the Baghdad Council to protect this source of major Iraqi pride from further damage.
من أضرار أكثر.
The Freedom Mural, which was made in 1962, was not only created and placed in the heart of Baghdad for its beauty and decorative display, but also it is an artistic relic that embodies the history of human civilization in Iraq since the beginning of history, and whose symbolism also extends into the future.
I see my soul in a mural. I was a student of Jawad for 4 or 5 years, then became his friend. The mural now represents a loud Iraqi voice, the voice of the Iraqi people for revolution, for paying attention to farmers, workers, time, and mothers. It represents Baghdad's immortality. The mural and Jawad will remain eternal.
The mural is made up of 14 artistic units forming 3 essential posts. The first post is the soldier in the middle, who opens the prison door to emerge into freedom. The second post is the historical symbols. The third post is of a mother, the ancient symbol of fertility. The most important feature about the mural is that it is part of the archives of Iraqi memory. Jawad Al-Khattab, Al-Arabiya, Baghdad.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.